Let's unpack that for a second, because I know whenever there's an attempt by, say, like fast food workers to organize, they ultimately get hit by the trope that, well, isn't that like a high school job? I imagine there's some people listening who say, like, well, ride sharing, isn't that a job that people just do on the side? Isn't this side work? Do they need a collective bargaining unit? What do you say to that kind of perception that's out there? And Brian, you can take that first.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, that's a very common perception. What's important to realize is that while most Uber and Lyft drivers are part time, most rides are performed by people who do this full time. So the vast majority of the work is being done by people who are working very, very long hours. Some people may see this as something that they do like 10 hours a week, but a lot of people are doing this 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 90 hours a week. And the people who are actually doing it the longest amount of time are, you know, back if 5 years ago, before Prop 22, people would sometimes, do this full time. There were full time drivers back then, but they'd say, oh, I have some flexibility. That flexibility argument, which was really the crux of what Uber and Lyft argued they wanted to preserve with independent contractor status, that's gone because the wages have gotten so low that people are driving 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week just in order to make ends meet. And so the idea that like this is sort of, not, really full-time work, or this is just a side hustle, that's propaganda, I think, that's been, pushed by the companies to deny many drivers who really rely on this as their main source of income their rights.
And Alvaro, can you talk a little bit about, for folks out there who, are not a driver, or maybe their only exposure to drivers is, when they're tanked, they get an Uber or something. Can you take us into what is the life like of folks who do this work full time, who are rideshare drivers?
I mean, it's pretty hard, I mean, I personally do not drive as much as I used to drive because I used to drive, a lot. Now I'm just driving less because I have another job. But I know personally full-time drivers who are driving 100 hours a week. A lot of times people always says, why you don't just go look for another job? But you're talking with people that they bought a car specifically to do rideshare, and they still owe half of the car. They bought a car and they financed the car for 7 years. After 2 years, Lyft cut their rates. We keep making less and less money, so they already have close to $200,000 on a 2 year car. So they still have 5 years to go, and how are they gonna get out of that? So what they decide to do is, just keep on driving and just trash the car. They just keep on driving, and driving 100 hours a week. Trust me, is really tiring, like really tiring. You only have time to, for a bathroom break, and you don't even eat healthy because you always have to be online trying to make money. So you don't want to miss no rides. So you always online. Some people, they even sleep in their cars. They sleep but like 30 minutes, and then they woke up, and then they keep on driving, and they sleep another 30 minutes. They don't even have an apartment because they cannot afford it. They are sleeping in the car. So pretty much they're homeless, without being real homeless. They're homeless because they live in the car because they don't have an apartment to live.
And maybe you can speak to this too. I jumped into a rideshare car. This was a couple of years ago, and they had a camera pointed at the back seat. And as someone who's really opposed to digital surveillance and likes privacy, I was initially kind of critical. But as I was talking to the driver explained to me that they have to keep the camera there, or they chose to keep the camera there for their personal safety. And they started telling me the different stories about the ways in which their safety has been compromised. And quickly, my complaint about the camera disappeared. Can you talk a little bit about the dangers that the drivers face in this line of work?
Yeah, I mean, I had to kick people out of my car, but like me, I'm a big guy, so people, actually think twice to do something to me. But yeah, they still, argue with me, like scream at me. One time, somebody hit my head, the back of my head. I just opened the door and I kicked them out because I'm big. People think twice. But what about these drivers who are like skinny, little, or women's? Lyft and Uber, I think Uber, they just passed this new feature on the app that we're gonna be able to accept cash from the passenger. To me, that's a no because when you start putting cash to the drivers, that's easy to get robbed, because then passengers are gonna be like, okay, now I know this driver has cash because it happens to me before. Like there was this guy trying to rob me, saying, okay, give me your cash. He had an iPhone on his hand, and I said, look, I'm a driver, I don't have no cash. And it was true, I didn't have no cash, but now Uber is trying to make it like where we're gonna be able to accept cash from the passenger. Think about how dangerous that is, because the passengers are gonna know that we carry cash now, and that puts us on a risk. That they might try to like rob us. But like I say, especially women's always face the problem that the passengers, they always talking bad to them and telling them stuff, and that's like really common. But like I said, with guys, I seen a lot of guys that they get like in trouble with passengers, and they say, I was so afraid to say no, because sometimes we get these people that wants to, for example, my car fit, let's say that if it's 4 people, sometimes you have 6 people, and they all want you to take all 6 in the little sedan, and you're afraid to say no because sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere. So
Hmm.
you're forced to kind of do whatever the passengers tell you to do. And this is really common. This happens all the time. And keep in mind that we drive at any time of the day and at any time of the night. At 2 a.m., 3 a.m., we are out there driving.